So the unique thing about you is you have your sister Charity. She's your identical twin. Identical, right?
Yep.
Okay. And she also competes. But like, could you psych people out and like pretend you're the other one?
Oh, very easily. Like, Primal's a bigger place, so especially people who don't know us that well, it'd be so easy. So people are pretty surprised too when they find out, wait, there's two of us. Like, I mean, still people are still learning that. Like, newer people will come in and they'll be like, "Oh, you guys twins?" And it's like, "No, we're not related." Like, I'll
Yeah, I
mess
don't
with
know
you.
who that is.
It's so very obvious that we are twins. So it's such a dumb question. Are you guys twins? I'm like, no, we're not related. Like, that's weird that you said that. So I'll play that game or so. They're just
Nice.
like, look at us. You have eyes. Of course, we're related.
So like, for Austin, could you psych Austin out or no?
Oh, Austin. I love Austin, but man, he is terrible. He calls me Charity all the time. And we've known him probably for 3 years. And sometimes I'm just like, what just came out of your mouth right now? Wasn't my name. And he does it on accident and stuff. But he is probably the worst offender out of all of our like tight friends.
Jeez Louise. I'm not surprised, Austin. Austin, get your shit together. So, Courtney, you train at a Primal MKE in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You are from that greater Milwaukee area. You have also been at Unified Mixed Martial Arts. And I really wanted to start off our conversation not with like the boring cliche questions like how you got into the sport, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure you've already answered that, so we're going to blow past that. There are two gyms. Can you talk a little bit about? I know you're not originally from Milwaukee. Can you talk about moving to Milwaukee and how you got hooked up with Primal MKE?
Um, so yeah, originally we were at Unified Martial Arts, and we gradually over the years had a few teammates move down to the Milwaukee area, and then over time they settled at Primal MKE. So my sister and I, we would kind of come down, hang out with the friends, and then visit, and train while we were down there and come to Primal. And then it got to the point where we made the decision like what's best for us and kind of MMA was to move down to Milwaukee and start training there, like 100% of the time to have that our primary gym.
So you've been at Primal for 3 to 4 years, is that right?
No, it's only been a year. We're still
Oh,
new blood.
okay. So you've only been there for a year, but you've been like
Yeah,
occasionally there for a number of like just occasionally a few
yeah.
years. Okay. So how has that first year training there full time been?
So it's been pretty great. I will say it was like a hard adjustment moving from such a smaller gym in town to a big city and a bigger gym. Um, but overall, like I think the move was a good change. We have so many more training partners, which has really helped, and kind of the training style they do there. I feel like I've made so much improvement in the last year that I wasn't really seeing in my last few years um, at Unified. And not that it was anything wrong with Unified, it's just at that time we had like the training partners, like here's me and Charity, and then here's the next biggest person. So there was just an issue with that. And then the way that Primal trains, I think I respond really well to that, and it's a really good learning environment. So I've seen a lot of improvements in me and my sister. So overall, the first year I think has been really great, and I'm really excited to kind of see how we continue to progress as we keep, kind of trucking along there.
So for those who don't know, Courtney is like the prototypical strawweight size. So you're 5'4", 115 pounds. Charity last fought at atom weight, and she's also 5'4". Is is she going to come back to 15, or is she going to stay there?
I'm not 100% sure what she's gonna do. We'll kind of see. The first thing, I ask someone after they fight, so what are you gonna do next?
Right, right, right.
She's just enjoying her recent win. We'll kind of see what she ends up doing. I personally think she would do well at either weight class.
Yeah.
But I feel like 115 is obviously the one that's there's more, potential there, I feel like,
Yeah.
just because it's a bigger, weight class overall over cross promotions and stuff.
You're absolutely right. And I wish that there was a 105 in like the UFC. I know there's Invicta, but outside of
Yeah.
Invicta, I can't claim to know any other organization that has an atom weight class.
Not a deep division anywhere really.
Yeah. Um, if she were like 5 feet tall, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. You should probably
Yeah.
stay there. The reason why I bring that up is 115. Is that like a difficult cut for you, or are you typically right around there anyway?
I do cut weight, so I definitely don't walk around at 115.
Sure.
But the cut is very manageable. I do, still diet. I still do a water cut, sauna, which is terrible. But I mean, I always make weight. I've never missed weight. So it's very manageable. Sometimes I think like I could maybe even put on a few more like pounds of muscle, and then, cut a little bit more. Um, but so no, it's not a challenging cut. It's a cut I've done, so many times before. So it's something I'm very comfortable with. But I see some other, fighters kind of around my weight, and I hear what they cut or what they walk around at. I'm just like, what? Like what?
Right.
Crazy. It's a lot.
What is your take? I kind of want to like zoom out and just kind of, Courtney, get your opinion on how the weight systems or the weight classes are for women in mixed martial arts. So we have atom weight, and then we go obviously up the scale. We got straws, flies, bantamweights, and then featherweights, right? So increments of
Yeah.
10 for people who don't know. Do you think the women would benefit with additional classes, or are you happy with, like, with what we have? Do we have enough?
Um, Personally, I think it's more so, especially with the cut between 105 and 115. Like that cut. So like thinking about going to from 110 to 115, and that's say like a male fighter going from like, um, you know, I'm trying to think like 145 to 155. That's still 10 pounds, but 10 pounds on someone my size on my body versus a man who walks around, and cuts from 155 to 145 is a huge difference. Like that's a huge percentage of body weight at smaller fighters weight. So, I mean, you see people who would like kind of really say, or smaller, female fighters saying a 110 division would be perfect for the people who are too big for 105, but too small for 115. It's just because it's just that I don't think it's realistic though, because again, these divisions aren't deep divisions. There's not a whole ton of female fighters, and especially at the lower weight. So I don't think it's realistic, but like I try to, explain to people when, Charity and I do these cuts, like, oh, we both have 10 pounds. Oh, but look at my body. Look at, your body. Like 10 pounds is a lot on my body. Whereas, a man at 155 is, I mean, it's a lot, but it's not as significant amount of weight compared to like what we're carrying.
It's and then there's also the obvious like factor like for various biological reasons we won't get into. It's obviously easier for men to cut weight because we don't have to worry about that, and then obviously testosterone. Like it's
Yeah.
easier for men if you're dialed in. It's way easier. You could I would say it's easier for a guy who's like 150 pounds, 155 pounds to cut all the way down to like flyweight if need be.
Yeah.
Like I'm not advocating that. I'm not saying that's smart, but it's doable, and a lot of guys do that. For women, I don't think you really have that flexibility, and it's really tough for a lot of these girls, especially at that upper echelon as they get older. Right, as everybody gets older, it's tougher for everyone to lose weight, and particularly with the straws, you see time and time again. A lot of these straws in the UFC, they miss weight all the time, and
Yeah.
so it's just kind of like I know typically for I want to say for a non-title fight they'll give you a pound or a pound and a half. I may not be 100% right, but do you think like it could benefit if like they increased it a little bit, or is that being too crazy?
Again, it's hard to say because so I've had 7 fights
Right.
now, and I've never missed weight. I feel like, so again, it is something that I feel like all female fighters should be aware of,
Right.
and then should be able to like, okay, if that times coming or whatever, what do I need to do in order to make weight? What extra steps do I need to do? Um, so, but do understand that things happen. I've had opponents miss weight on me, and it makes me upset. But I do
Sure.
understand that sometimes things happen. So I don't know. I think we should be able to, unfortunately, it's just a part of the game, and you have to be prepared for that. That's kind of just my take on it.
Gotcha. I wanted to dive specifically, Courtney, into some of these bouts that you've had. You just mentioned you've had 7 bouts on the AMI scene. And I know you're 25, 26 years old. You're not in your athletic prime yet. Like you're I wouldn't say you're just getting started, but like you have enough experience under your belt where you're in this kind of like no man's land. And what I mean by that is like you're not exactly like a rookie who doesn't know anything and hasn't been on the scene before, but you're still at that point in time where like you're fighting a lot of these girls that have a lot more fights than you or a lot more octagon time than you. And with 7 bouts under your belt, and I looked through all of them, I noticed that there were 2 years of inactivity, and I'm assuming it was because of Rona. I'm assuming it was because everything got shut down. So there are like 2 years. There's 24 months, and you probably could have had an additional 3, 4, 5 fights in that 24-month stretch. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like? You were making momentum, things were looking great, and then the world shuts down. So what did you do during that 2-year stretch?
It was, I'll be honest, pretty terrible. I think it was terrible for a lot of fighters, especially, for the ones who like literally could not fight, no matter how much they wanted. So of course, when shutdown happened, I didn't really train for, as long as, the real shutdown happened. So then once we opened back up, I really tried to focus on training as much as I could. But, again, without fights happening, sometimes it's hard to get motivated to be in the gym, every day of the week when you're like, well, I don't have a fight coming up. So I tried to stay motivated and stuff. And then the move down here a year ago also made it hard because, again, we were still in pandemic mode, big move. And again, yeah, I got to the point at the beginning of this year, where I was like, okay, well, things are kind of easing down. A lot of fights in Iowa are happening. And I was getting to the point where it's like, okay, well, I want to fight now. I want to fight now. And then, my manager was kind of struggling to find, opponents and stuff. There'd be ridiculous, like travel, like, oh, from states, then they're not going to really pay for travel or a plane, we get these offers, but it's like, no, it's too far, and our promoter's not going to, take someone, I'm halfway across the US or the other half and meet in the middle. No, they want someone local to sell tickets. So that was an issue that, I think a lot of fighters experience, especially when, being a female fighter, there's just not a lot of opponents sometimes. So it's just hard to find those matches. So I mean, I got to the point where I kind of like told my manager, like, I'm really struggling here. I need to have a fight like right now. Like I need to fight right now. And then so at the end of July, luckily I was able to fight and get back in there because I was getting really antsy, for that huge layoff too. Because the more the time went on, I was like, am I ever gonna fight again? Is this even a thing anymore? So
Sure. Yeah, and we will definitely get into that's definitely a fight I want to ask you about. Before the shutdown, you were making all this momentum. You picked up 3 wins right away, and you're winning these. You're finishing these fights. One of those bouts goes to decision. I really liked that fight, by the way, against Rachel Lippert. That was a great fight. She's tough, but I liked watching that fight. And I thought that was like the first time I saw you like really like use your stand up game and like and strike, show people like I'm sure you get a lot of shit, and I'll explain why. But I thought your striking looked a lot better in that fight. Like I know that's not really like your primary discipline, and we'll definitely go into what that is for people who don't know. So we win our first 3 bouts, and then you fight Christy Gart, who is a monster, and that happened in May of 2018. We didn't get a dub for that one. We got a UD loss. Tell me, we lost that fight, and then there's a period of time. You almost go a year or a half a year without another fight. So take me back to like that first loss. That was the first time that had happened. Did you take that pretty hard? Was it easy to kind of just get over and move on to the next one? Because Some people, particularly for the very first time they lose, like some people take it really well and others don't. What was it like for you?
I really didn't take it hard at all. So this was another one of those fights where there was weight issues. The fight was not, about on the agreed weight. There was a last minute change in weight. Not saying that that made a difference necessarily in the outcome. It very well might have still ended up the same. But so there was that kind of going on, and I still was like, okay, well, I will still take the fight. But obviously, she's a very elite wrestler. But I feel like in that fight, I did everything that I could. And I had a strong third round. I felt that even though I lost, I did everything I could, with my skill set, and I just didn't, come up with the win. So I didn't take that loss hard. I feel like if I lose, but I did my very, very best, like there's nothing I can be disappointed about. And I know that I made my wrestling coach from Unified Martial Arts. I know I made him very proud that night, even though I did lose. And I know that my sister, she fought that night. He was also very proud. So I think as long as, I know it's so cliche, as long as I did my best, but that's really at the end of the day, I feel like what's important to me, because there are, very rarely are you ever going to find that you're going to go undefeated. There might be someone out there that will always be able to, get you somewhere or outmatch you at some, in some way. So I wasn't necessarily disappointed. I mean, I was disappointed, but I wasn't like, I didn't take it hard. I felt content with that fight and I was proud with what I was able to do.
And you went back out 5 months later against Savannah Tarver, and that one you ended quickly. There was a 5 month stretch. So, like, when you were preparing for that bout, like, can you talk a little bit? Did you change anything up and from a training aspect, or is it pretty much just, you know what, I'm going to get back in there, it'll be business as usual, and I'm just going to go out there and get a dub against my next one?
I think it was pretty much business as usual. Yeah, I don't think there was necessarily really anything super special that we worked on, and we just really focused on probably, my strengths, which was like the wrestling and the grappling. So yeah, I didn't really necessarily change anything. I don't really think for that camp. Camps are always, challenging and you get pushed hard, but it wasn't anything like special or anything different that I hadn't really done in the past.
There's some certain people, things won't go their way, and then they will like make a bunch of changes, get out of their comfort zone, and sometimes that works, but sometimes that can backfire. So not panicking and just kind of like, okay, that was behind me, it wasn't my night, I'm going to go back out there and I'm just going to trust in my coaches, I'm going to trust in my teammates, I'm going to go back out there and it'll be a different outcome. And it was, and I bet that felt really good. I bet that next win was a lot sweeter, because when you go through that first loss, like whether you take that seriously or not, I would imagine that thought's going to creep in your mind, like, did I do something wrong? Did I not prepare right? Like that's kind of like a mental, I don't know, like maybe like a mental challenge that a lot of people probably go through. And so it's good to see that you didn't overreact. And I look at like all these girls that you fought, you have like one of the toughest ammy records I think I've ever seen. I've been doing a lot of these shows, and these girls that you're fighting, you talk about there being like kind of a shallow pool to pick from, but you're getting the best. From a record standpoint, Claire was the one that doesn't have like a very nice record on the when you look at it, but I haven't dug through all of her fights, but I'd imagine she's a lot better than what her record indicates. And I know that sounds so cliche, but
No, I agree with you
I
there.
say this time and time again, particularly for Amis. It's like, don't pay so much attention to the record. Look at who they're getting wins off of, because in the UFC and Bellator and Invicta, everyone's a savage. Everyone's freaking amazing. In the AMI realm, you could have somebody who's like 10-0, but they've fought a bunch of scrubs. Whereas you, I mean, Alyssa Linduska, I know who she is. Like she's freaking mean, and that was a tough fight, and I don't think a lot of people would have taken that fight.
Yeah, it was a tough fight, and obviously it wasn't amazing. Um, but at the end of it, I'm glad I had that fight because it really, at that point, yeah, that forced me to address and acknowledge there are holes in my game that I need to work on, obviously. Because up until that point, I hadn't had someone like that. Obviously, it wasn't an amazing fight for me, but again, I'm glad I had that. now, especially as an amateur versus a pro, it's like, oh yeah, there's things that I still need to work on, if I want to get to that top level.
What I like so much about you, so like, well, let's take a pause because you said like, hey, there are holes in my game. Well, there are holes in everybody's game. It's mixed martial arts, and you're not going to be boss at everything, despite what people may say. It's just not going to happen. You have to be comfortable enough to like make adjustments when you aren't in your comfort zone. I think that's really what mixed martial arts is all about. My approach to you, if I were a coach and I had a girl that was fighting you, would be a lot different compared to what I've seen happen in the octagon. I feel like a lot of girls want to shoot on you and want to take fights to the ground with you. And that's not where I would want my girl to be against you. Like when you get on the ground, you are so strong. You are able to, you may not have top control, you might be fighting off your back, but you look so comfortable no matter where you are on the ground. And I feel like the worst place for somebody to be against you is actually when they're in your full guard and they're posturing up and they're trying to hit you. Bad idea, because I know exactly what you're going to try to do. And I'm going to let you fill in the gaps for what I'm not alluding to. Can you describe for the people who haven't seen you fight before, what is your fighting style all about? What are you really, really amazing at?
Yeah, I mean, if you watch my fights, it's, I'd say, pretty evident that I'm a ground fighter, and that I have pretty decent wrestling overall. Um, and again, I'm sure it's very evident that yeah, you don't want to be in my guard or Charity's guard for that matter. That's There's actually a joke at the gym. Um, if you're on your back, you're losing, except if you're Courtney or Charity. Because that's honestly where we're probably the most dangerous, and it's just from since we started MMA like 6 years ago, we've always been the smallest people in the gym. And when you're grappling, a lot of times that's kind of as a small person, you're on your back and, you're trying to guard up. So we just got so proficient there because that's literally where we found ourselves all the time. So that's definitely, I mean, you can watch our videos, it's very apparent that that's where we're really, very comfortable.
I probably weigh 100 pounds more than you, and if I were in your full guard, you'd probably break my arm like in a second. Like it's one of those things. Like it doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter how big you are. If you're fighting somebody that has technique, they're trained, they know what they're doing. I don't care how big you are. Your arm is going to get freaking snapped in half. And what I like so much about your fights in particular, and this is what I've seen. Yes, you talked about being a ground fighter, but I've seen like in the course of your fights, just because you're a ground fighter, you don't necessarily shoot on people right away. You've been actually really patient. It was about that you won. You stood on your feet for quite some time against this opponent I'm thinking of. It was Rachel. You stood on your feet a long time against her and like traded. And can we talk a little bit about like striking? I bet you get a lot of shit, and people say, or the critique against you is like your striking isn't all that good. But I have seen like your striking get a lot better just looking at your fights, and I know that's something that you've been like really working your butt off to like get better at. Can we talk a little bit like what have you done specifically at Primal or in your other gyms to get your striking disciplines jacked up a little bit?
So specifically what we do at Primal, which I've really been, enjoying the last year, is that we do so much live work and not, a lot of live sparring, live work. We do like constraint drills and we don't do slow, boring, okay, we're going to practice this combo for the whole class until it's perfect. No, there's none of that. It's all very live. Um, but we, make sure that it's in check so we're not getting like a lot of head, trauma from it. So everyone's very well controlled and stuff, but we do so much live, and it's in those live, sessions or, exchanges where you're learning the most. Like I can, spar with, so many people throughout, this hour long class and get so much information back, about my striking. It's like, okay, well, I keep getting hit here. What do I need to adjust here? So you're constantly like learning from live situations instead of, the really slow, just like hitting, practicing on a heavy bag. Like that stuff is just not, I don't feel like really constructive for like learning. So that's what we've been doing at Primal. And I feel like that's really helped me a lot in my striking. I feel like I've improved a lot since I started at Primal, um, which has been a really great thing because I kind of thought like, oh, I'm just always going to be a bad striker. Like, no, I'm just bad. I just can't do it. But since coming to Primal, it's like, oh, I am still learning. I still am improving, and I still have more work to do and stuff. So I'm happy kind of on that trajectory where I'm at with Primal right now.
I could tell you're way more confident because like you're throwing things now that you wouldn't throw in the very beginning of your career. So like even the fights that aren't available that I have seen, you wouldn't be throwing like the kicks and stuff in particular that you were throwing. Like you wouldn't have done that. And like as you have more octagon time, more experience, more training, I'm seeing what you could become. That's starting to become more and more apparent. Like you're evolving, you're getting better. And your last opponent, that must have been good because like right, we kind of do a stock market thing. Win, loss, win, loss, and then
Yeah.
we just got another win. So how are we going to keep this going? When are we going to see you back out there?
So I'm hoping December is kind of my timeline. Don't really have anything concrete yet. Right now, I'm kind of
Sure.
talking with my manager and coaches about potential locations, dates, but I'm feeling very confident about December. After that huge layoff, I'm still pretty antsy to get back
Sure.
in there, get stuff, ramping up. So I'm hoping, we're hoping December to get back in there.
Let me ask you this. So like what is the long term, like where is it that you want to be? So I have to ask, I ask every Ammy the most annoying question. You know exactly what it's going to be. I know your coaches have a big role to play in terms of how time frames work out. They'll let you know when they think you're ready to like go on up. Do you have an estimate, or is that like a discussion that you have with your coaches on the regular, or is that something you're just not really thinking about right now?
It's definitely on the radar. I'm at the point where I've already have 7 AMI fights. Um, so I think it's looming pretty near, turning pro. If I'm going to keep fighting, I'd like to get a little bit of money, out of it and start building, a record that way. Because obviously, when you turn pro, everything amateur is gone now. So I think I really have been focusing on, taking amateur as like this is my time to learn. This is my learning experience. But then obviously once it's pro, it's like okay, this is career moves time. Obviously still learning, but it's just at the next level where you have to take it, I think, a little bit more seriously. So I think though with kind of how many fights I've had, it's getting soon, I think.
I would hope from a not so much a competition standpoint, but from a financial standpoint, it would make life a little bit easier. I understand that the purses like aren't insane. I know that they're very modest is probably that's probably an exaggeration, but it would help reduce some of the expenses that you've had to go out of pocket for so many years because there are so many obstacles, there are so many barriers to competing in this sport. And I think that Amis like kind of divide, and like the people who are hobbyists and don't take it seriously, they're gonna get rooted out relatively quick. People are gonna find out like, oh wow, I have to drive 4 hours for a fight and not get paid for it. Like I had to prep, I had to put in hundreds of hours of training to get to this moment. I get here. I'm staying in a shitty Holiday Inn that I had to pay for myself, and I got a water bottle out of this, and then they're like, "Hey, good job, kid. Maybe we'll call you if we need another meat bag in here." And that's really the extent of it. And I can understand. There's like I don't think Amy fighters are really appreciated all that much, or fighters in general, but particularly the AMI fighters. And I just want to know, like, how the hell do you do all this? Because there's no money in it. There's so many out of pockets that you are incurring that most of us don't deal with. And then you have rent to pay, you have to put gas in your car, all that other stuff. How are you doing all this?
Yeah, I'll definitely say that it's not been easy the last 6 years, especially, when I first started, full-time student. I have a full-time job now, yeah, you have bills to pay. And after you work, full day of work, oh, am I gonna have free time? No, I'm gonna go to the gym and train. So it's not just a financial burden, it's also your personal life. A lot of people don't have the luxury to, train full time. People have full time jobs or full time students. So, a lot of those things, a lot of times, personal lives kind of get pushed to the side, at least in my experience, that's been a huge factor. I'm very lucky though to have a great support system and, friends at the gym. They pretty much are my, social life, but there was years when it was really hard to balance all that. And then, yeah, with, we don't get paid to fight. So, I mean, yeah, you have, gym fees, you have blood work, you have, depending on the commission, you have to get a state license to fight, so I mean, you're spending money to compete, at the end of the day. I mean, you might make 10% of tickets that you sell, but I mean, that's like what, $100 if you sell $1,000 worth of tickets. So, I mean, I haven't been doing this for the money. I do it because I really love it. Yeah, I just love it. So it's worth it. It's worth the time. It's worth the expense. I don't know where it's going to end up, but I'll never regret, the time I've spent doing this. It's changed my life again, even though there's negatives to it. Yeah, it's definitely changed my life. I'm, so happy every time I, get to the gym, after a hard day of work or a stressful day at work and I go to the gym, I'm like, oh, my family, hi family,
Right.
and then we get, fight each other and it's just amazing.
That's fantastic, and you definitely look ecstatic every single time you're getting ready to like compete. Like before the fight happens, like you just look like you're in your element, and that's where you want to be. You're happy, and there's like this look of like it was all worth it. And then when you win, I don't know. I can't describe it. Like it's just like you just radiate this like energy. Like it's just tough to like kind of articulate or put into words. So, so I won't try. I'll just say watch this little clip that I put together. I went ahead. I grabbed some stuff that I thought I wanted people to know about you because I think you're a special fighter. I like your ground game. You have so much. I hate to use the word potential because I know you probably hear that all the time, but I think that you have something to offer at that next level. It's really obvious. Like this is something you're really, really passionate about. You've given up so much to do this, and the fact that you're able to keep pressing on, keep doing this, because a lot of people after 3 or 4 of these would have been like, I need to get paid for this now. And I bet that was a temptation at some point, especially when you would start buzzing through these girls. You're like, I'm ready to go up. Like I'm sure that went in your mind like back in 2017.
It did.
But
Yeah, definitely did.
but it shows that you're coachable and that you'll listen because your coaches were like easy, red light. We're not going any further. Relax. And you took that advice. Like I bet you had those conversations, and I bet you they said like you need more experience. You're not ready yet. And some people probably would have bailed and just gone to a different gym. Like no, screw that. I'm ready. I'm gonna go fight. So good for you. Before I let you go, Courtney, I want to give you the opportunity. Shout out who needs shouting out, and tell the viewers that are watching this what is it that they need to know about you before they watch this little best of clip I put together of you.
So I guess shout outs. I would of course like to shout out my gym, Primal MKE. They're a great gym. If you're ever in the area, you should definitely check them out. I also want to thank Unified Martial Arts, my original home gym. They're great too. They're in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. I also want to shout out my management team, which is Dream. And then I would like to shout out to my sponsor, Vitaliboost. They keep me big and strong. And then, yeah, if you want to just watch my, MMA career, I am on Instagram, just at LaBuy if you want to follow me. And, keep updated on all the, Cutie Pie fights.